Hello, brothers and sisters in Christ. I'd like to talk to you about this war between Israel and Palestine. I'd like to talk to you about what's really going on. Okay. Uh, Christians have been lied to about what's going on between Palestine and Israel. Many have fallen for the Zionist tropes and not really looking into the Bible and to see how you know how Israel really behaves. Okay. Now, I just want to be clear that I am not against all Israelis. I am against the ideology of Zionism, which is really supremacy and basically the right to be racist under the Talmud. Okay. To see that Gentiles are just animals. If you ever read the Talmud, you would see that it says that Jesus was a sorcerer, a lot of blasphemous stuff, that he's in hell boiling in hot excrement, stuff that he's a sorcerer, stuff about Mary was a harlot who slept with many carpenters. Okay, there's a lot of things in that Talmud that is believed by you know the the uh the Israelis who are Zionists, and they believe in doing things such as murder, uh, a whole bunch of other things, molestation of children, designated bondmaids. Okay, Israel needs Jesus. Okay, and that is the facts. You cannot treat Israel as like they don't need Jesus. They do. They need the word of God and they need to repent. And this information here is going to be proof of that. Okay. When it says in the Bible, synagogue of Satan, it's not joking. All right. Israel has always had a remnant that believes in God, that has always had to deal with the majority of Israel that worship the devil, that wanted to do their own thing, that wanted to. It's kind of the same. It's kind of the same thing with, there are those in the remnant of the body of Christ that want to follow Christ, even when it hurts. And you have the enemies of the cross that the Apostle Paul talked about, who Christ was using. I don't know if you notice, there's a lot of people that hate the Apostle Paul uh, within Christian circles. But the reality is they hate Christ. Okay, just like the Zionists, they hate Christ. Without further ado, let's get into this information right here.
To get worse over there. And the defense minister, Yoav, that's his first name, but anyway, he is actually now saying that everything that they do not have to apply by any of the rules of war whatsoever. And what was really concerning for me in the beginning about that was the fact that white phosphorus was being used in Israel. And so I was beginning to think that, well, maybe that was just, some old footage or something like that. But now that we're hearing the defense minister is actually speaking about, uh, you know, all basically all rules of war do not apply whatsoever in this conflict. And that really becomes a major issue there in there. And I was trying to, here we go right here. Um, Yoav Galant, he said, I've given an order that Gaza will be under complete closure. There will be no electricity, food, fuel delivered to Gaza. We are fighting barbaric terrorists and will respond accordingly. He actually says non-human is what he says, or animals. And this same defense minister of Israel now is telling all Israeli soldiers it doesn't matter what they do to get the job done. There will be no war crimes assigned to any Israeli soldier, and that pretty much everything is open to be able to do anything that people want. So this is where we're kind of starting off at. We've got so much things that are going on in the Middle East here right now with Israel, with a possibility of a war against Syria, against Iran, and of course this whole issue with Hamas that so many people have not liked to hear that clearly something was amiss when it comes to Hamas being able to enter into Israel just totally undetected. Really, I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. Rabbi Mizrahi, the Israeli rabbi that we played for you yesterday in the broadcast that we did then, clearly was saying to the people that that it was an inside operation. And of course, you can't say he's anti-Jewish or anti-Israeli. He is 100% pro-Israel, 100% pro-Jewish, everything. And even he was calling it an inside job. And that kind of really goes along, Yana, with a lot of the friends that we have in Israel that are also saying that. But yet at the same time, they're a little bit reluctant to want to say anything publicly because of fear of backlash of what's going to happen if they do. And of course, we're getting the backlash already from that very thing there. Did you say Elizabeth was wanting to join us?
Yeah,
too?
Elizabeth wants to join. Also, do we have, is there a live chat in there?
Yeah, we
Steve?
do have
Can
a
I
live
see?
chat, but let me see. I don't know if I can do it through there. We have to. Like I said, it's been so long since I've done it like this. Um, there you go, right here. There you go. There's your live chat feed going on right here.
Okay.
And I don't know if we have any of our old moderators if you have joined in tonight from years ago, but if you have, please we appreciate your help and anything we can do to deal with the chat room there. That is something, like I said, it's been a long time since we've actually done this, so I apologize for this. Had some technical issues trying to get things ready tonight here, so we apologize, but we're trying. First time, been a long, like I said, first time since we've been up on doing something of this nature here.
Well, the question here is, there is two sides to this story, and two things are going on in parallel. The churches in United States, about 99% of churches are giving people totally different story than what you see on social media. There are pastors of Zionist nature who are telling people this is a fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And on the other side, we have a small number of Christian pastors and leaders and the people of Israel who are actually explaining that this was an inside job and it was major pre-planned event by Netanyahu and right-wing coalition going on about 1 year to 2 years in preparation. So which side do we take? What is the truth here? Because there is a major chaos and major, kind of like misunderstanding. And the problem here is that we have friends in our ministry. We have friends that we know that are basically publicly attacking the side that Steve has been reporting, and this is what we want to discuss tonight.
Yes.
Where is the truth in this entire story? What really happened in Israel? Is that truly what God wants? This is what Father has planned, or this is how prophecy is supposed to happen, or what is going on here, Steve?
Yeah, the thing is there's, as you mentioned, there's a lot of ministers out there. There's a lot of different opinions about prophecy and what are the prophetic. How is Israel fitting in prophetically right now with Hamas attacking Israel, and so people are looking at this from a biblical standpoint, saying Israel, they're supposed to be in the homeland. We're supposed to give them unconditional support, etc. As if some of the biblical prophecies they're looking at are still yet to be fulfilled. Now the thing is it's not that. I mean, we agree that Israel would have a right to defend itself. That's not an issue there. Israel having a right to defend itself. The problem that we ran into, even though we may disagree on prophetic issues on some of these issues here, is the fact that someone in the Israeli government has been willing to sacrifice their own people at the hands of Hamas.
So bottom line of this is not really fulfillment of any
Right.
biblical prophecy, and that's the truth. That this is not prophetic. What's going on here is global elite and people who are in Israeli government and leaders of Israel, the nation of Israel today, are basically putting their own people on the altar so they can achieve their plans for the new world order. And this is the bottom line, and this is the truth in the entire situation.
Right. When you're looking at, like I said, there are people that have looked at, for example, some people are looking at Ezekiel's prophecy in chapter 37, or right now, Mecham Mamre is making Psalm 83 pop up, so we know that this never happens, by the way, on Mecham Mamre, where a verse actually pops up every time you open it. But the group that controls this, of course, is a pro-Zionist group, so they want to make it appear Psalm 83 is what's being fulfilled right now. But when we look at Ezekiel, like I mentioned to you briefly the other day, and I'd done a teaching on this not too long ago and everything, that Ezekiel 37, where it talks about, and I will take the children of Israel from among the nations, whether they are gone, and I will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land. See, people are believing that this is why Israel is in the homeland today, that this was not fulfilled 2,000 years ago. But yet when Peter on the day of Pentecost stands up there in verse 36 of Acts chapter 2, he says clearly that, he said, "Be it known unto you, O house of Israel, that this same Jesus whom you have crucified has been made both Lord and Christ." So the house of Israel had already come home. And in fact, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, as I pointed out the other day, that when it's quoting the very verse here, it talks about how that when the tree is bent over and stood up again, that's when this prophecy would be fulfilled. And of course, Jesus being that tree of life, when he died on the cross, he was bent over, he was slumped over. But when he rose from the grave, he was standing back up again. That was the prophecy being fulfilled. And the Dead Sea Scroll writers there, or the commentators on these scriptures there, that's what they were looking at. So it's placing a prophecy that's not appropriate to the situation in Israel. And my wife had said to me a little while back, and I thought it was very appropriate. She said, I believe that Israel has the right to defend themselves. She said, after all, she said, many people that are living in Israel today were born there. For them, it is their home as well. But the thing is we don't believe in the oppression of the Palestinians either. In fact, clearly, this was the biblical mandate that was given to Israel, that when they were in whatever land, their homeland to begin with, they were never to oppress the stranger. That is a command of God, not to oppress them.
Not to even say they're not the strangers. Palestinians lived there long before
Right.
Israel was even created. Okay, and for this type of information, we need to call names like Michael Peled, P-E-L-E-D, that I would like for our listeners to go and listen to all of his testimonies and everything he has to say listen to videos and everything, because he is a son of Israelis that came in there when Israel was created, and the entire narrative of creation of Israel, as has been put into history books, is wrong. There were people in the state. It was not like they say that it wasn't occupied and it was empty. This is completely not true. Okay, when they took homes of these Palestinians, when they came into the land, he's describing how the pots on a stove were still hot from the time when they threw out the Palestinians and they put the Israeli families in their homes. So they literally threw these people out, and the entire history has been told wrong, and it was we were lied to in everything. So all of this has to be addressed from the very beginning. That Israel, there is also the sites that I have been telling you to go and visit for many, many years, ifamericans.org, I think, ifamericans.org. And on this website, everything is monitored, how Palestinians have been treated by the state of Israel. Now, when we are talking about the war that just happened, you, Steve, mentioned creation of Hamas. Who created Hamas?
Israel actually created Hamas. And let me say, before we get into the creation of Hamas, you know, the situation in Israel right now is what it is. I don't see anything changing now that the government has allowed Hamas to come in and massacre Israeli citizens, over 1,000 dead. The Israelis are going to rally. Even those that were against the judicial reforms and all of that, they're going to rally now because Israelis have been killed by Hamas. The problem is, though, and this is where the real issue stems from, though, is that Israel did create Hamas. Ron Paul says before, let me just pull that so I can pull that up real quick while we're here. Ron Paul actually spoke right before Congress how that Israel had created Hamas in order to be able to keep the PLO in check. And the thing is when we're looking at that and we see that this is what really happened, you know, and then and knowing this, let me see here. Let's see if this is where it's at there, where he says.
Leads to a point where.
That's not it.
Okay.
That's only
The problem is, here it is right here. Let me play this real quick for you so you can hear Ron Paul.
Was encouraged and really started by Israel because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat. You say, well, yeah, that was better then and served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do this. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system, we're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first, indirectly and directly through Israel, help establish Hamas. Then we have an election. Then Hamas becomes dominant, so we have to kill them. You know, it just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden. And we were contending with...
You don't have to get into the Osama bin Laden part there, but as Ron Paul is showing you there, that not only was it Israel, but we actually helped create Hamas with Israel because they were fearful of the PLO. And Hamas, by the way, is the Muslim Brotherhood. Those of you that remember when Barack Obama was president, excuse me, he was siding with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. This is how they had the Arab Spring. This is what caused the collapse of Egypt. This is, you know, so many things, the killing of Muammar Gaddafi. Everything that has been stable in the Middle East has been as a result of the United States and Israel creating this Muslim Brotherhood that has just turned this whole Middle East into a powder keg.
In my personal opinion, Hamas was created for that certain purposes, as Ron Paul says, and as you say, Steve, but also he has been kept as a controlled opposition. I mean, when you check how leaders of Hamas, you know, the leaders of this entire Hamas army are treated by Israel. They're treated as
Yeah.
friends.
Yes.
And they're given the best treatment in Israeli hospitals. I mean, it is completely visible that that Hamas is a controlled opposition. Hamas is an opposition that Israel needed to bring the situation to what it is today. So this is called Hegelian dialectic. This is what the globalists or elitists use. They create a problem and then a solution to a problem. So how would they create a problem if Hamas didn't exist?
Right, and you know, speaking of that, the same thing with Hamas. You had Israel there, you know, as this conflict with Syria, especially when it was really heated up majorly. The Israelis were there treating all the fighters that were against Syria, the Al-Nusra Front, the most vicious of fighters, and they're over there treating them and making sure they're all patched back up, put them back on the battlefield because they're trying to overthrow Assad in Syria. So the whole thing is, even this case with Hamas, Israel needed, and when Netanyahu makes the statement that this is our 911, this is ours, there for Israel, it was the same thing that they had in the United States. They wanted a war with Iraq. They wanted, you know, Netanyahu had already been beating the drum beats that Iraq had chemical weapons, they were a danger, but yet the stupid thing was is they put, or quote unquote, they had Saudi Arabian nationals that were the ones that were flying these planes into the Twin Towers, which we know it wasn't necessarily that. But the thing is that they go in there, instead of going after Saudi Arabia, they go after Iraq. But that was because Netanyahu was already sounding the war drums for Iraq, that was the true enemy in the first place. And yet at the same time, though, in order to be able to get a war to justify against Iraq, they had to have such a tragedy for the American people that the American people would rally around such a tragedy. Now they want a war with Iran. Not just Iran, they want to justify blowing up Damascus and taking Damascus out. The only way they can do that is to create such a catastrophe for not just the Israelis but the Americans, because naturally for the Americans, if we see a massive loss of life of Israelis, that's going to cause the Christian community in this country to go completely bonkers, and rightfully so. We should go bonkers to see such massive loss of life over there. And quite frankly, I would say that even if suddenly a massive loss of life of Palestinians happened over there.
No, the problem is no Christians in America worry about Palestinians' lives. This is not even a question here. Like, look at all of the Christian channels. Nobody talks about Palestinians.
And yet 50% of Palestinians, or not, well, I shouldn't say 50% now because most of them have been ran out of the country. I did a broadcast not long ago about that issue. There used to be a large Christian population of Palestinians in Bethlehem.
Well,
now there's only 10% of them are there now because the rest had to flee the country. They were totally oppressed.
Unfortunately, Christian pastors in America care more about Talmudic Jews. They call Talmudic Jews the chosen people and brothers, and they don't care or give a thought about any Palestinian Christians, as if they were no people at all. And this is the truth that needs to be told. Also, let us not forget what preceded this attack by Hamas, and it was the preparation of the State of Israel, the right-wing coalition that took power, and judicial reforms that they're working on, and installing complete Talmudic dictatorship in a country. So what they did, they divided the nation. Pastors did not see that enormous other issue that should be addressed. And also what we need to notice is how everything, what they're doing is kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are faking that this is the biblical prophecy, and that they're fulfilling it artificially. preparing and installing dictatorship, and then now they're ready for all this war and called the biblical prophecy. So the Christians are so fooled, and they actually are helping this entire plan. They're helping by supporting this. And here we will have Christians calling for war, just like Nikki Haley was calling for war and blood and attacking Iran. Now, let me tell you, are we as Christians supposed to call for blood and for war? For real? Is this what we are?
This is why you don't trust politicians, because politicians are there to manipulate the crowd, and they serve the groups that are donating them money. Okay. And for Nikki Haley to say that, she had to have somebody paying her to say that. Someone that will benefit from the U.S. going to war. Okay. And unfortunately, you have many Christians who are bought into Christian nationalism, which is really a lie, because Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it was, my people would fight. Christians are just pilgrims passing through. Okay. And many Christians are just swept up to it, and they really just don't like the biblical Jesus, because the biblical Jesus tells you to love your enemies. The biblical Jesus says, be wise as a serpent, but harmless as a dove. Okay. And it rubs a lot of Christians the wrong way, especially men who are Christian, because men don't want to be harmless as a dove. They don't. And they have to conform to the image of Christ. Okay, if they want to be obedient, they have to conform. And instead of going through the struggle to conform, a lot of us will just resist and be swept up by any false doctrine. The doctrine of supporting Israel no matter what they do, Zionism. And as I've said before, Zionists look at Gentiles as animals, cattle. They don't look at you and me as human beings. They look at us as slaves. Get yourself a copy of the Talmud and read it for yourself. You will see that how Israel sees, how Zionists see Gentiles. It's not a good thing. It is not. And if they want to harm you or take or unalive you, they can. It also says in Talmud, if you feel like you want to take a person's life, go into another city and do it. Do it unawares. Make sure they don't know about it. Okay. If you look, you'll find out that it was made public that the Israeli government sterilized Ethiopian Jewish women without their consent. There's no excuse for that. You see, there's also a lot of racism. Okay. Going on in Israel, which is against God. God made Moses' sister Miriam a leper because she had some smart thing to say about Moses' black wife, Zipporah. All right.
Are called to do? Is this what Jesus would be doing right now? Do you think Jesus would be standing next to Nikki Haley asking for the drumbeat of war? Because I really don't think that this is what he would do. And let us just go, Steve, and I would like to play a video, but when you're ready,
Okay.
of Paul Begley, Pastor Paul Begley, because we were attacked by him 2 days ago, and I really want to go and play his video and make comments about what he said.
Yeah, and what I want to mention though is when you mentioned the judicial reform, let me just back up first and again touch on the 9/11 scenario. When Netanyahu said that was almost to me a subliminal message. In other words, we need a big loss of life to get people feeling sorry for us and to garner support. It's a twofold purpose for Netanyahu. One, it was to galvanize American support and European support for a war against Iran and Syria. Secondly, and this is what I thought that when you mentioned the judicial reform, Israelis, because there's been an attack upon their own, will the way she has it put out there, but she tries to put out videos to make people think about what really goes on in Israel. She served in the IDF. It is a short time. She used to live in Israel, four months in the IDF. I believe she is a natural Israeli-born citizen as well. But she came on and commented, Stephen, I agree with you. There is no way that the Israelis would have not known that Hamas was coming. Not to mention that Egypt warns them, right? But my point is, though, is this here. Even friends that I have in Israel that have openly have already said, they take the point that I make on this, they get it, they realize that this was a setup, but they said at this point right now, though, we've been attacked and we have to come together to be able to fight what has happened. So they're willing to lay aside the differences of what some of the few of the elite in the government have allowed this massacre to happen on Israelis in order to deal with the situation in hand. And in this case here, Hamas. And as that happens, what will that do? That's going to take those people that were against judicial reform and be more apt to accept and allow judicial reform all in the name of unity to fight Hamas.
Exactly.
That's what Netanyahu, that is the greatest achievement, because look, you've got the most extremist of his government, Ben Gvir, etc. Ben Gvir, he said throw all the Christians out of the country, including not just the Palestinians, but all the Christians as well. Throw them all out of the country.
Yes, this is major anti-Christian coalition there is, and this is what's irony here, that Ben Gvir is actually terrorist. And just Google him and go to Wikipedia. He was a member of terrorist organization, okay? He is a major supporter of Kahani, Meir Kahani, who is majorly anti-Gentile, not only anti-Arab, but anti-Gentile, anti-Christian. They are asking for Christians to be thrown out of country. But what's irony is that pastors of this country are telling Christians to support this coalition and to support this entire situation. So this is what's got to be addressed here from beginning in a very concise, logical way. And I really suggest that we do every day this type of open, Steve, we need to do this every single day and prepare really good. So from the very beginning, we can explain to people what is truly going on, because it is a major, major deception. Yeah. And when you said, Steve, in the beginning that I said that Israel has a right to protect themselves, every country has a right to protect themselves. This is absolutely normal. However, in the case of Israel, this is the case where the government has pre-planned an attack on their own people. Okay?
Yes.
So in that case, this right to protect themselves makes no sense. There is no logic in this. How do you protect yourself against your own government who is playing games on
Right,
you.
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
What we'll have to do, the one thing is, as John's saying, we'll get better prepared, and I'll also get the bugs worked out.
we had
Because I
major,
realize
major
too, even the
issues
camera
today
system
to get here.
is messed up right now.
Yeah.
So it will take, and we'll say tentatively we will try to do each day. I realize that we may have other obstacles, but we also got to work out the, like I said, I realize that the camera issue is a little bit messed up. I've got a different split screen we can put in here. But it's been a while since we've done live streams, so I was surprised I could still figure out how to put it together though. But at any rate, there is a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts to this. It's not just the fact that we're, you know.
And this is not just me and you saying this, Steve. This is something that Israeli citizens are crying about, and you have given proof. But I think it's time to play a video by Paul Begley,
Okay.
Pastor Paul Begley. 2 days ago, he made a video and obviously talked about Steve and me, and we would like to address this. I prepared it, Steve. So
Okay.
he had that one. Let's just listen up a little bit. We'll keep stopping.
We're closer than we've ever been. Now there's some misinformation. I'm going to go out and say it now. There are people already on the internet making stupid analysis and information. There are people running around hollering false flag, false flag. In other words, blaming the Israeli government. They're saying that the Jewish government, the people of Israel, are opening the door and allowing an attack on their own citizens to be slaughtered in the streets.
Which is true because 3 days prior, the Egyptian government informed Netanyahu that Hamas was coming to attack Israel, and Netanyahu had the Iron Dome shut down. The same Iron Dome that, you know, they could detect a cockroach. Not even a cockroach could go undetected with the Iron Dome. Okay. It's good to know history because a lot of people are thinking that, oh, this is not true. And like governments haven't starved their own people. Governments haven't created situations where the people would be in disarray and they would have to depend on the government, allowing the government to bring in their form of control and what their agenda is. Like that doesn't happen throughout history. With communism in China and other places. The Bible says that the children of this world are smarter than the children of light. Sad to say that's true.
Homes burned to the ground. 260 young people massacred at a music festival in the desert. Now, I can tell you this. I've been to Israel 11 times, and I've been to the Knesset 3 times. I even spoke before the Knesset. I can tell you, I promise you, this was not a false flag.
Well, good thing we don't believe in his promises because he's wrong.
Because at this very moment, Israel is fighting for their lives. This isn't 9/11 for them. This is World War II as far as they're concerned. They are fighting for their lives.
Can we pause it just for a minute?
Sure, yeah.
I want to show you guys, and you guys already know this from if you watched the video yesterday, but let me take you though seriously. Hang on, I'm in the wrong channel here. So that's my private channel. Oh, can't do it from that side. Give me 1 second here. Um, he's saying that Israel did not do a false flag, right? Now, this is Paul saying that. But I want to show you. This here is Rabbi Mizrahi, an Israeli-born rabbi. Okay, Israeli-born rabbi. And I want you to hear what he had to say. He just released, it was a 2-hour broadcast, but it's just a little short clip of him. So I want you to hear his own words of what he said about this. When Paul Bagley said the Israeli government didn't do a false flag, they didn't allow this to happen. Listen. Rabbi Mizrahi.
How is it possible? Where was the army? The army did not start to respond at least 4 hours until already hundreds of people were murdered. Everyone is in shock. I spoke to a few people who used to be in intelligence. They say if a mouse would touch the fence, 20 jeeps will get there in less than a minute. This how strict it used to be. It has to be an inside job. It cannot be that they broke.
Has to be an inside job. He said he spoke to some people in the intelligence community, former intelligence, and they said if a mouse touched the fence, 20 jeeps would be there within 1 minute. And I get what he's saying. I mean, I know from the suicide bombing.
How about the letter you got, Steve, where the ex-IDF says that...
Yes.
No, IDF members said that they were told to stand down. Okay?
Yes, here we go, right here. And this is it here. Let me get the part where he says they were told to stand down. It was dragged, mutilated soldiers seemed to be armed. The enemy took 4 completely undamaged tanks. The Gaza, let's see. Maybe it's on this one. Okay, I say with certainty, this was a stand down order. They do indeed have a very expensive obstacle to prevent this: sophisticated tracking surveillance with remote operated machine gun emplacements, and even if they were overrun by surprise, which is impossible, the Israeli Air Force has Apache helicopters for this case. And there were none airborne until at least 6 hours later, when hostages were being taken back to Gaza and the terrorists were coming and going as they pleased in great numbers. The Navy managed to destroy every single enemy that attempted a mass distributed coastal landing without a single loss. So the Navy could knock them all out with no big deal, but when it came to the land invasion, nobody was there to do anything. That's what he's really saying.
Yes.
So and Rabbi Mizrahi says it was a false
Well, it's not
flag.
only Rabbi Mizrahi. These are enormous amounts of videos, Steve, that we just didn't prepare for tonight. But I will play what Elizabeth has prepared a video, and she has basically put it in her video. So let's just
Efrat also,
right.
And she says right here, I'll play this one little clip here. She's an Israeli, and listen to what she says.
Were attacked there. Some ran away, some were injured, and some are still missing. Apparently, Israeli defense forces that were supposed to be around Gaza were placed around the West Bank because of security concerns, so that the Gaza envelope was left unoccupied with military. They say around 60 to 80% of that area was left without the IDF forces that were supposed to be there.
Can you imagine?
No wonder why nobody could
No
respond.
IDF forces. Also, I know that the fence had some sort of sensors installed that even if a mouse came to a fence or a cockroach, the IDF was notified, but suddenly those sensors were off. Okay, so everything was carefully pre-planned so this attack can happen.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, there is so much proof of it all over. And Pastor Paul Begley just says that this is a stupid analysis and a stupid information, okay? So why don't we...
This is why you can't believe everything a pastor comes out of a pastor's mouth. You have to check it for yourself, okay? Because a lot of these pastors are either paid, okay, to say the things they're saying, or is it just the fact that they just want to be a superstar in their own mind, and to hell with the ramifications? Okay, they don't really care about the sheep. They want to be popular. They want to be on CNN. They want to be on Fox News. They want to be famous. They don't care about God, or, you know, the Jews or the Christians that are basically being affected by this. All right. But this is part one. I'll do the rest possibly later on this evening or tomorrow. Okay. So that'll be it. Peace and God bless.